there is a study by a guy named Hendrik Bessenbinder. He's a finance professor at University of Arizona, I believe. And I thought it was pretty fascinating. So he went back and he looked at every single stock that is traded in the US since the 1920s and just asked the question, okay, how many of these did better than just holding like treasury bills? And it was pretty crazy. Like the vast majority of individual stocks actually did a lot worse than just owning treasury bills.
Okay.
Like most of them did worse than that. When you dial and zoom in on it, from 1926 to now, about half of the wealth that was created in the stock market came from 86 stocks out of tens of thousands.
This is Successfully Retired with Hamilton Brandenburg.
Rick.
Yeah.
It's in Cherokee County when this thing will be airing. It is the week of fall break. So I'm going to be at your favorite place in the world, 3OA.
Yeah.
Well, actually, technically Panama City, but Panhandle of Florida.
Yeah.
So,
love it.
Yeah, go ahead and be jealous. But no, you and I were talking. We've been talking a lot this week, and both of us have had some interesting stuff come across our desks.
Yes.
And I thought, you know what? Maybe this is my self-delusion, but let's share some of the conversations that we've had this week with our listener, Grandma. I'm sure she would like to hear some of this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what I was thinking. I had some thoughts on just some investing stuff, some stuff about like why people do or don't work with financial advisors. But and then you had a really interesting case that I want to hear about with a couple who had their retirement plan completely changed by meeting you or their time frame changed. So what do you say? Should we kind of kick some of this stuff open?
Yeah, let's do it. Yeah. Tell me what's been on your mind.
Okay. So I'll go first. Great. This is awesome. I love it. I love it when I get to go first. I read a study this week. I came across it, probably spending too much time on social media. I think it's a few years old, but there is a study by a guy named Hendrik Bessenbinder. He's a finance professor at University of Arizona, I believe. And I thought it was pretty fascinating. So he went back and he looked at every single stock that is traded in the US since the 1920s and just asked the question, okay, how many of these did better than just holding like treasury bills? Which for like non-investmenty people who don't like know what that is, a treasury bill, that's like the safest thing you can buy. It's like getting like a short-term CD from the US government, right? Like it doesn't get a whole lot safer than that.
Yeah.
And it was pretty crazy. Like the vast majority of individual stocks actually did a lot worse than just owning treasury bills.
Okay.
Like most of them did worse than that. And a lot of them like went to zero. So like when you dial and zoom in on it from 1926 to now, if I read his report correctly, about half of the wealth that was created in the stock market came from 86 stocks out of tens of thousands. The rest of them either lagged or went to zero.
Let's unpack that because I've not read this. That's shocking to me. So
there's no pictures in the study. Sorry.
That's why I didn't. Yeah. And it's not, if it's not on audiobook, if I can't listen to it while I'm mowing the grass, I haven't learned it yet. So, I'll
just read it over the phone to you next time you're mowing the grass.
Let me ask you this. What's the time frame on, he's saying like, what's the time frame on that? Like how
1926 to 2020.
Okay.
So like almost 100 years.
Right. So starting in 1926 though.
Yes.
Right. Not starting in 1995 or not starting in 2011 or not starting in 2010. And so that's where I see stuff like my brain goes to, okay, that's interesting data.
Yeah.
But is that applicable to what I'm doing or what my listeners doing? Because they didn't buy a stock in 1926, nor did they buy T-bills through, double digit interest rates and all that other stuff. They didn't do any of that. We're looking at 2025 and 2026.
Yeah.
And I'm guessing if you started even in the 1990s or 2000s, that data would be significantly different. I'm guessing. I don't know.
So, and I'll make sure I'm framing it correctly. I don't think he was looking at like if you bought the stock back then. I think he was looking at like the best performers during those time periods, during all those time periods. So, like if you track the performance of each of those stocks in each of those years, then you're basically your top only a very like 4% of your or less of your
Right. So
stocks
so in
have
any one, if I
carried
pulled out,
throughout
so
all
if I
times.
pulled out, if I pulled out any one given year, I would say in 1989, only 4% of stocks beat the 6% T-bill that I could have got.
Correct. So,
Okay.
and what's
Okay.
interesting too, so there were some spots where you saw, so like some of your biggest net gains of like adding wealth were some names that you're gonna know, where they're like
Yeah.
Microsoft,
Sure.
like a lot of tech stuff was kind of big positive stuff. The only stock that actually has been on the stock market since that time was like ExxonMobil, which
Right.
was like a leader for a while.
Right.
But like the vast majority of stocks throughout history have actually done worse than just and I think we like to think about like there's like the people who are super the vanguardy people who are like, just buy the index. Most stocks lag the index. Most stocks, at least historically, at least according to this study, most stocks don't just lag the index, they do crap. They do worse than
Right. Well,
owning
okay.
something
So
safe.
now that I understand a little bit more what this is, my takeaway, or at least my understanding, is what we already agree on and know, which is for your sleeves, your large cap growth or your US sleeves or your international sleeves, buy the index and not the individual stock. This isn't saying buy T-bills and stay out of the market.
No.
This is saying stock picking
Yes.
is likely a losing game,
Yes.
but the right stocks as a group we know are going to outperform long term.
Yes, and I think that's the point of the study is like, listen, guys, and I think a lot of times I used to frame when I would talk to clients about managing risk by owning lots of things. Sometimes we call it diversification. I would kind of approach it with people and say, you should do this because of the risk of the downside, right?
Yeah.
You don't want to own a bunch of Lehman Brothers in 2008. But I've started shifting the way I talk about it as saying, taking more like, okay, one of my favorite investing quotes is Wayne Gretzky. Okay. And obviously, if you know who Wayne Gretzky is,
Yeah. Big
hockey player, you
investor.
should know this. You're a Northern guy. He's a hockey
Yeah.
player, best
Yeah.
hockey player
I
of all
do.
time. But he said, I don't, instead of chasing the puck around court, get to where the puck's going to be.
Right.
So like for me, the value of owning the whole haystack instead of looking for the needle in the haystack is that if you own everything, guess what you probably have? You own the best performing stock of the next 20 years because you own
Right.
everything. So to me, I've started looking at diversifying or buying the whole haystack, as I call it, not as just a way of like, oh, let's make grandma's money safer for her, which is what
No,
I think a lot of young people
it's
are like,
having
oh, that's
exposure.
boring.
It's having exposure to the winners.
It's having exposure to the
Yeah.
winners, and it's you getting in the right place
Yeah.
before everybody else gets there, which takes me to my second favorite investing quote also is not from investing. I don't remember who said this, but he said, the first rule is not to fool yourself, and you're the
Right.
easiest person to fool. And like
Yeah.
how many times you look at an investor's statement where they're a stock trader, like, man, I did great. I made like 10% on this, the past 2 years. And you're like, cool. The market's done like 25% the past 2
Yeah.
years.
Right.
You're
Right.
spinning your
Well,
wheels and getting stock picks
yeah.
and lagging.
There's
It
two
sucks.
interesting points there that come to mind. One is that exposure by buying groups. I had a client, and this happens all the time. I getting a little FOMO, watching the news, listening to his buddies talk and stuff, and is emailing me saying like, "Hey, should we be buying Nvidia?" This was last year. Should we be
Yeah.
buying Nvidia? It's blowing up, and everybody's making all this money, and blah 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 blah. Blah, right? And I gave it some thought and went into it, and I'm not going to give you the exact number because I don't know it off the top of my head, but when I looked at his portfolio, he had like 4% of his whole entire portfolio just in NVIDIA.
Yeah.
Because of the way things were weighted and a couple of things that I had in there. And when I put that into dollar amounts to his $2 million portfolio, he was like, holy shit, I got plenty. Like, I don't want any more than that. You know what I mean? And so, but just because it's not a line item on there as a single individual ticker, you still have exposure to it. And quite honestly, have quite a bit.
Yeah. Well, for every, and to your point, you probably have a lot of, you already have all the individual stock. You already got your NVIDIA or whatever.
Yeah.
If you own any kind of US stock fund. But one thing that I see, and I've seen a lot of stock picker statements, and sometimes they've got some real winners, and it's like you did things the wrong way and you got the right result.
Yeah.
Great job.
That's worse.
That's actually like the worst thing that can happen to you,
right?
Because you got your confirmation bias. But I see a lot of people who like they are spending all this time on investing research and watching their this and that. And it's like, and they're neglecting every other aspect of their financial life.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing that people aren't talking about is you have limited mental capacity to deal with your own personal life and your own personal finances.
Yep.
So is that mental capacity spent well on trying to pick stocks when most stocks actually do very poorly? And that gives me a lot of empathy for, and you have to retrain investors. I've had people who came to work with me and they had another like advisor in 2008 and he had them in stocks that literally went to zero.
Yeah.
And now you're having to convince them to put money back in equities. And they're like, I've been on this horse before. And you're like, no, you haven't. Because I'm not sitting out here trying to pick the winners and the losers. I'm trying to get you to where the puck's going to be in the safest, cheapest way possible. And it makes it really tough. So I think most people just need to stay away from it.
And to your previous point, the other thing that did make me think of was when you said I made, in this example, I made 10% and you're like, yeah, but the market did 20. You're looking at your accounts, whether you're doing it yourself, whether you have a good advisor, whether you have a bad advisor, whatever it is, you're looking at your accounts in a vacuum. You're not comparing it to any benchmark.
Yeah.
And so if like good performance to you in the last handful of years is what's keeping you from going to a planning focused advisor or doing something else or lowering your fees or whatever the thing is, the likelihood is that you would have experienced that same performance or better somewhere else. That's not unique. Like this has just been coming up a lot. I've talked to some people where they feel like they made 12% because their investment advisor is so damn good at investments.
Yeah.
No, you made 12% because they accidentally made 12% when the market did 16.
Yeah. That's
and
right.
they just, and like, that's the only thing they're doing. So they tell you that it's because of them and their value. But the truth is we could have made the same amount or more. Plus you would have got all these other things taken care of, which you're actually worried about and would add value. So that's interesting because I've seen that come up a lot where the people are hesitating because my account's doing well. I don't want to leave it. Yeah. Or it's down, so I don't want to leave it, as if you're going to sell it a loss and then we're just going to let it sit in cash. Like it's transferable is what I'm saying.
It reminds me, and we'll wrap up on this, but what you just said just brought a conversation to mind I had yesterday, and I'm meeting with a new client and he is like, hey, my advisor, he made me 10%. So that's pretty great. And I was like, okay, great. Is he doing any tax planning? This client, now he's 80 years old and he's retired. I was like, cool. So is he doing any tax planning? What's he doing for tax planning? And the guy's like, oh, nothing. And then the second question was, okay, do you know how much money you can safely take out of your investments every year without running out of money in retirement?
Yeah.
And he's just looked at me like a deer in the headlights. And he said, I have no clue. So if you're super, like you're 10% you're making, great. What is that for? And if your guy, if that's his whole focus is like how much money I'm making you, but you don't know the basic answer to a question like how much money can I spend every year, then I see that as a red flag.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I'm not going to overload my portfolios with T-bills despite what that study might sound like. But I think that's a good place to leave it.
Yeah, I think you're right. And I think the point of it was not everyone should invest in T-bills. Just you.
Yeah. Yeah, right, right. Yeah, just me. No,
All
I
right.
think that's a good place to leave it, and we're gonna follow this up because we, you kind of started there, but we're gonna have our next conversation. So listen to the next one. We're gonna talk a little bit about some actual client experiences that we just had in these last week. Talk shop a little bit, what things they saw that might have surprised them that likely a lot of you would see yourself in. So take a listen to that one. It's going to be good.
All right. Good talk, buddy.
All right, buddy.
This show reflects the personal opinions and viewpoints of myself, Hamilton Brandenburg, and my guests. Opinions and viewpoints are subject to change at any time without notice. No representation is made as to the accuracy, completeness, or relevance of the information presented. The information discussed is general in nature and does not constitute investment, tax, or legal advice, so consult with your tax, legal, and financial professionals about your specific situation. Past performance does not indicate future returns, and any indices mentioned are for reference and cannot be invested in directly. Brandenburg Financial Services is a DBA of CS Planning, an SEC-registered investment advisor.